Welcome back, focused learners. We are jumping right into a pretty mind-bending explainer today. We're looking at a deeply radical piece of philosophical writing. Specifically, we're exploring the teachings and works of the founder of Life Chuanyuan, the guide Shui Feng, or as the source material frames it, 自生命禅院创始人雪凤的教诲与著作. We're digging into a text of his called Countries Will Disappear, which is part 2 of his On Life Chuanyuan era series. Look, regardless of where you personally stand on global politics, this text offers a completely uncompromising, out-of-the-box take on the very idea of the modern nation-state. We're going to neutrally unpack his logic, the hard data he uses, and this ultimate utopian vision he builds toward. So let's just get right into it.
The existence of country is the disaster for all people. Right out of the gate, Shui Feng absolutely does not mince words. The text establishes, from literally the first few lines, that as long as countries exist, and by that he means divided regional governments, we are never going to see true peace. His teaching is that the Earth belongs to everyone collectively, right? Not to any one nationality or border. So trying to manage the planet through this fragmented, disunited system, he argues it's fundamentally broken. It's a massive hook, and it sets us up for a total reimagining of how society could operate.
So, here is our roadmap for today's explainer. First, the problem with nations. Second, the financial cost. And third, the Life Chuanyuan era. Okay, starting with section 1, the problem with nations. Shui Feng breaks down the damage caused by borders into a massive, multi-layered global crisis. First off, he argues that the current system wastes an unbelievable amount of human and material resources just to maintain artificial lines on a map. Second, the constant competition between these regional regimes, it directly threatens the balance of our natural ecology. Third, he claims that these boundaries are actively holding back the spread of civilization. And fourth, this is probably his most unique point. He says this fragmented system literally suppresses human intelligence. It's like our collective human brainpower is just being totally stifled by all this regional antagonism. Moving on to section 2, the financial cost. Now, the absolute core of his financial argument is this. If we just had one single government on Earth, we could immediately cancel all military expenditures. And that alone would bring enormous welfare to all of humanity. I mean, think about it for a second. If there are no other nations to fight, the whole concept of a military just evaporates, right? And that's not even counting the money saved by cutting out redundant government agencies. Shui Feng points to military spending as the ultimate symptom of this evil consequence of having separate countries. To really ground this idea, the text pulls data from a 2005 report by the U.S. Center for Defense Information. He lists out the military spending of 46 major countries at the time. And just look at the scale at the top of that list. You've got the United States sitting at $399.1 billion, Russia at $65 billion, and China at $47 billion. The author uses these numbers to make the abstract idea of waste incredibly visible and concrete. Because when you add up the military spending for just those 46 countries in that single year of 2005, you get this absolutely staggering figure, $828.6 billion. The crucial takeaway here is that this number represents the financial sacrifice we make every single year simply because we're divided into competing nations. It is a massive drain of global capital, poured entirely into defense and conflict. But Shui Feng doesn't just leave it at this giant macroeconomic level. He breaks it down to show the personal hit. Back in 2005, the global population was about 6.5 billion people. If you take that $828.6 billion and divide it up, the existence of divided nations basically slapped a $128 tax on every single human being on Earth, man, woman, and child, in just 1 year. To put that burden into perspective, he makes a really striking comparison using the populations of China and India. If you dumped that entire global military cost solely onto the 1.3 billion people of China, it would be $637, or about 5,000 RMB per person. Now compare that to the World Bank's per capita income data from that same year. The average Chinese income was just $1,290, and the average Indian income was only $620. He's pointing out a complete tragedy here. The cost to maintain this divided world required the equivalent of over half the average Chinese citizen's yearly income, and literally more than the entire yearly income of the average Indian citizen. It's just a stunning visualization of misallocated wealth. So, having established this mind-blowing financial drain, the text pivots to a super blunt rhetorical question. If we are setting fire to over $800 billion a year, eating up the livelihoods of billions of people, what exactly is this expenditure working for? What do we actually get out of it?
His answer is totally uncompromising. Exaggeratedly speaking, he says it is used for killing. And because of that, Xu asks, are humans reasonable? His answer is a flat no. He argues that as long as countries exist, it's just impossible for us to enter a peaceful, happy era. To him, the current setup is fundamentally irrational because we're prioritizing funding death over funding life.
Which brings us to Section 3, the Life Qianyuan era.
The first 4 points of this proposed Life Qianyuan era are all about completely dismantling the current world order to build a borderless globe. Number 1, exactly one global government which makes all national constitutions totally invalid. Number 2, 0 armies, only police. All weapons meant for killing are completely destroyed. Number 3, redundant agencies like embassies, customs, and immigration, gone. All regional boundaries erased. And number 4, because of all that, we get absolute freedom of movement. You can literally go anywhere on Earth you freely choose.
Now, you might be wondering, who actually controls the beliefs of a totally unified world? Well, point number 6 outlines a very clear separation of powers. The single global government would strictly handle the logistics, administrative affairs, keeping the lights on, without ever interfering in human ideology. On the flip side, the Life Qianyuan movement itself would guide the ideological realm, but they would completely stay out of the government's administrative duties. It's this proposed perfect harmony between practical management and spiritual guidance. And finally, points 5, 7, and 8 lay out the economic promises of this era. This is the utopian welfare made possible by taking back that $800+ billion in military waste. Global resources are shared, everyone gets free education and medical treatment. Interestingly, though, limited private ownership is still protected, so it's not like personal property is entirely abolished. Plus, society handles things like elder care, and the minimum subsistence of every single citizen is permanently safeguarded.
We have covered a huge amount of ground in this explainer today, tracking Xu argument all the way from the philosophical flaws of borders to the hard data of military waste, right into this completely unified utopian society. The text actually concludes with this exact question, is this an illusion? And the author firmly states, no, it is not. You will see when you finish reading them all. And I think that leaves us with a really provocative thought to chew on. Regardless of how feasible you think this is, does the staggering cost of our divided world mean we need to start thinking outside the confines of the traditional nation-state? Thank you so much for exploring the teachings of Xu with me today. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.